Vulnerable. Written by Severix. Read by Arashi. Byleth couldn't sleep. He lay awake, staring into the darkness, mind spinning. Next to him was Yuri, probably asleep, though Byleth couldn't really tell. It had been 3 months since Yuri moved in with him. He knew such a move could make or break relationships, and he had no idea how Yuri thought of it all. Everything seemed okay, but he also knew Yuri tended to never share his deepest feelings. He didn't fault Yuri for it, though. He knew he wasn't much better himself, and he also knew Yuri's past made him have a hard time opening up at times. He did like to think, however, that if he were to open up to anyone, it would be him. And that's why he lay awake, thoughts spinning. He wanted to know what Yuri thought of their relationship. He wanted to know what Yuri thought of him. He needed to know if things were working out, especially now that they lived together. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. Maybe a drink of water would help. But before he could leave the bed, he felt Yuri move beside him. A lamp suddenly illuminated the room, and Yuri sat up beside him, looking at him with confusion. "Are you okay?" Yuri asked. Byleth let out a deep breath. "I just have a lot on my mind. Can't sleep." Yuri looked at him with concern. "Anything you want to talk about?" He hesitated for a moment. Would this be the right time to bring up his concerns? He supposed there was never truly a good time to be vulnerable. Maybe this would be his chance to voice his concerns. I'm worried that you might think differently of me now that we live together." Yuri's eyes widened, and then he frowned. "If anything, I think more highly of you now." He knew Yuri would not lie to him about such a thing, but at the same time, he hadn't seen any strong evidence for his claim. "In what ways?" he asked carefully. Yuri froze at the question, clearly not expecting it. "In every way," he finally replied. Byleth frowned. He was hoping for something more specific. "If something is bothering you, you can tell me," Yuri assured him. "You're being really vague," Byleth said carefully. He didn't want to accuse Yuri of being insincere, but he wasn't satisfied with how superficial his answer sounded. Yuri glanced down at him, his composure breaking. "Sorry," he said softly. I just... You're not good at sharing your deepest feelings," Byleth pointed out. Yuri pulled his knees to his chest, his expression pained. "Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry." He paused a moment, not looking at Byleth. "How are you feeling about this relationship?" Byleth supposed it was a fair question. "I feel like there's a barrier between us sometimes. I'm bad at being vulnerable, and so are you." Yuri clenched his jaw. "Well, you're not wrong about that," he admitted softly. "Yuri, I love you. I truly do. But I feel at this point, we should be past the barrier." Yuri remained quiet for a moment. "If I'm being completely honest, I'm still afraid. Afraid of what you'd think of me if you saw my most vulnerable side." Byleth was hit with a pang of sadness. "Yuri, I definitely wouldn't think any less of you or try to take advantage of you. I want you to feel comfortable being vulnerable with me." Yuri took in a deep breath, then looked up at Byleth. "Well, all right. You want to know what I really think of you? Byleth, I love you. I truly mean that. You mean the world to me. You're the most wonderful person I've ever met. Just your presence alone brings me a great comfort. I never thought I could be so in love with someone." Byleth only stared at him in response. Yuri looked at him directly in the eyes. "You're the kindest, loveliest person I know. Your smile brings me more joy than I could ever put into words. Without you, my life would be so much worse. You've shown me that I'm worthy of love and kindness. I've never been happier than I have been with you. Living with you has only increased those feelings." Byleth was overwhelmed with emotions. Elation mixed with relief, mixed with embarrassment, mixed with guilt. "Yuri, He shook his head. I don't know how to put it in words, but he sighed. "Thank you for saying that." He glanced away, face pained. Is this where you tell me you don't feel the same about me? No, I just... He sighed, trying desperately to find the right words. I do feel the same about you. It's just that I'm not good at romantic stuff. He looked up at Yuri. You're so wonderful and beautiful and amazing. You're so kind and compassionate and loving. And I don't know what I'm doing. I just hope that I'm good enough for you. Yuri looked as though he might cry. Byleth, you... He wrapped his arms around him, pulling him closer. You're more than good enough. I couldn't ask for any better. Just hearing the sincerity in his voice filled him with relief. I'm glad to hear that. I should have opened up sooner. I'm sorry. I'll do better from now on. I feel awful knowing you were feeling that way. No, it's all right. I did the same. He looked at Yuri directly, smiling at seeing his face. He placed a hand gently on his cheek. Thanks for talking to me. Yuri smiled back at him, moving his hand to stroke Byleth's hair. You can always talk to me. About anything. I'm always here for you, Byleth. Byleth didn't know how to respond, so instead he kissed him. Yuri kissed him back lovingly, clearly pleased with his action. Once they separated, Yuri looked at him with tired eyes. Let's get some sleep. Byleth nodded, and Yuri turned off the lamp. Once they were in darkness, Yuri's hands searched for him until his hands found his face. Even in the darkness, Byleth smiled as Yuri kissed him again, more passionately than the last. Then, wrapped in each other's arms, they fell against their pillows, Byleth cuddling his head against Yuri's shoulder. You make me so happy, Byleth said, nestling against him. Yuri kissed his forehead. You make me the happiest I've ever been. Soon after, content in his lover's embrace, Byleth fell into a deep sleep, mind free of doubts.